Assalamu alaikum everyone, I'm your instructor Sania Gilani and this is the subject of Rise of the Novel 18th and 19th Century. We are on our lecture number 20 and today's topic is the theme of utilitarianism in Charles Dickens' Hard Times, industrialism, capitalism and dehumanizing effects in the society. We will continue our exploration of one of the most powerful themes in Dickens' Hard Times, the theme of utilitarianism. In our previous discussion, we examined how Dickens critiques utilitarian philosophy through education, childhood, and the suppression of imagination. Today, we will move beyond the classroom and into the larger social world of hard times, the industrial city, the factory system, social class, and the capitalist economy. In Granger's school, it represents utilitarianism in theory, then Coketown represents utilitarianism in practice. To understand Dickens' criticism, we must again begin by defining utilitarianism. As a quick recap, utilitarianism is primarily about judging society based upon moral actions and according to practical usefulness and significance of them. The greatest happiness for the greatest number of people is the goal of utilitarianism. Bentham originated this concept, but later thinkers such as James Mill and John Stuart Mill expanded this philosophy into broader discussions of law, governance, and social reform. On the surface, utilitarianism appeared modern and progressive because it emphasized practical outcomes over superstitions or inherited privilege. However, Dickens observed that in Victorian industrial society, utilitarianism was often distorted. Rather than genuinely promoting collective happiness, it became associated with economic productivity, mechanization, efficiency, profit, statistical reasoning, social engineering. As a result, people increasingly came to be valued not as emotional, moral individuals but as units of labor. This is the world Dickens dramatizes through Coketown. Coketown is one of the most symbolically rich settings in Victorian literature. Dickens described it as a grim industrial city filled with smoke, machinery, and repetitive sameness. It was a town of red brick, or of brick that would have been red if the smoke and ashes had allowed it. But this statement and this description immediately establishes a sense of corruption and pollution in the story. The red brick suggests life or vitality, but smoke has blackened it. Industrialism has literally and symbolically stained the environment. Dickens continues by emphasizing repetition, identical streets, identical houses, identical routines. This monotony reflects utilitarian standardization. Coketown is not a place of individuality, it is a machine. And within this machine, human beings are reduced to mere hands. This term is one of Dickens' most devastating linguistic critiques. Workers are not called men, women, father, or mother. They are simply hands. A hand is a body part, a tool of labor. As long as they are able to do work, they are productive. By reducing workers to their productive function, industrial utilitarianism strips them of identity and humanity. This is central to Dickens' social criticism. He is showing that when society prioritizes utility above all else, people cease to be persons and become instruments. Nowhere is this philosophy more clearly embodied than in Joshua Bounderby. Bounderby is Dickens' one of the most greatest tyrannical creations. He is wealthy, arrogant, self-congratulatory, and obsessed with the myth of self-made man. Bounderby constantly repeats exaggerated stories of his miserable childhood, claiming he rose from absolute poverty without any help. Why is this important? Because Bounderby represents the capitalist version of utilitarian ideology. Success is proof of merit. Failure is proof of weakness. According to this worldview, social inequality is natural because the capable succeed while the incapable fail anyway. Dickens dismantles this ideology by revealing that Bounderby's life story is largely false. His mother did not abandon him as he claimed that she did. This revelation is crucial Dickens exposes how capitalist self-mythology often disguises privilege, hypocrisy, and exploitation. Bounderby's false narrative allows him to justify cruelty towards workers because he believes or pretends to believe that anyone can rise if they simply work hard enough. Thus, Dickens critiques not only economic inequality but the moral arrogance that often accompanies it. Bounderby's treatment of Louisa also reflects utilitarian logic. This marriage is not based on love, emotional compatibility, or mutual understanding whatsoever. Instead, it is transactional in every way possible. Louisa becomes almost a social accusation that Bounderby has acquired. Here, Dickens reveals how utilitarianism can invade even private life. Marriage, under this logic, becomes another economic arrangement. Human intimacy is sacrificed to practicality. Now, let us consider Stephen Blackpool. Stephen is one of Dickens' most sympathetic characters because he embodies the suffering of the working class under industrial capitalism. He is honest, hardworking, morally decent, and emotionally sincere. Yet, despite these virtues, he remains trapped. Why? Because utilitarian society does not reward moral power, it rewards structural power. Stephen's poverty, unhappy marriage, and social vulnerability illustrate how industrial systems often crush the very people they depend upon. He cannot divorce his alcoholic wife due to unjust legal structures. He cannot trust Bounderby, who exploits him continuously. He cannot fully align with union politics, which often prioritize rhetoric over individual suffering. Stephen is trapped between systems. He is accepted by none of them. This is one of Dickens' most profound insight. Dehumanization can come from multiple directions whenever systems ignore personal humanity. Stephen's famous phrase, "it is a muddle," captures the complexity of industrial injustice. Unlike simplistic political propaganda, Dickens presents social suffering as structurally tangled. Stephen's eventual downfall, both literal and symbolic, represents the human cost of a system organized around profit rather than compassion. Now, let us lastly examine Dickens' use of fire and imagery of machinery in the story. Factories in Coketown are repeatedly associated with unnatural movement, smoke, pistons, and serpents. The machines are often described almost as monstrous. This imagery suggests that industrialism, which governs utility, becomes infernal for the people working in this system. Progress becomes destructive rather than liberating. Dickens does not reject technology itself. He rejects a moral system in which technology serves profits at the expense of human dignity. This distinction is essential. Dickens is not anti-progress. He is anti-dehumanizing. He believes that Louisa's internal sufferings again reinforces the broader critique raised in utilitarian rationalism and married into capitalist utility. Louisa becomes emotionally barren. Her crisis is not merely personal, it symbolizes the spiritual emptiness of a society built on calculation. When Louisa finally breaks down before her father, Dickens stages not only a daughter's emotional collapse but the philosophical collapse of Granquin's worldview of utilitarianism. At this moment, Dickens forces utilitarian logic to confront human pain, and pain cannot always be quantified. This is perhaps Dickens' greatest challenge to utilitarianism. Human life contains emotional, ethical, and spiritual dimensions that cannot be reduced to numerical value. By the novel's end, Granquin changes. This change matters because he realizes the fault in his philosophy. Dickens does not portray reform as impossible. Instead, he suggests that systems can evolve when they recognize their failure. Granquin's transformation symbolizes hope. Reason must be balanced by compassion. This balance is Dickens' ultimate moral vision. that no matter how severe the situation, things can get better. Now, why is this relevant? Because hard times speaks beyond Victorian England. Whenever societies value workers only by productivity, prioritize profit over welfare, reduce education to job training, treat emotional life as inefficient, measure human worth solely by economic output, Dickens' warning becomes urgent again. Because at its core, human beings are emotional beings. What happens when people are treated like machines? The answer is clear. Society may gain efficiency, but it loses its humanity. The most important quality that humans have, that other animals or machines do not have. So, utilitarianism is a philosophy, but a flawed one. It is a social force that shaped education, industry, marriage, law, and cultural structures in the worst way possible. Through Coketown, Bounder B, Stephen, and Louisa, Dickens reveals that a civilization obsessed with utility and profit risks becoming morally bankrupt. And he wants to avoid that. Human beings are not statistics, they are not machines, they are not merely hands, they are living, breathing individuals. That is all for today's lecture. And I hope you understood something. See you guys in the next lecture. Allah Hafiz.